glorious manhood. Vietnam changed all that, perhaps forever, and the longing of some Vietnam veterans for parades and flags can never be realized because they brought home the truth of war. Imagine a parade for them, led by human crabs without limbs, men without faces, men with minds and testicles blown away, frail young men addicted and dying from cancers caused by chemical warfare, and behind them, in endless formation, Vietnamese women and children and old men zapped by the friendly fire of napalm. And who would take the salute for such a parade? The generals? The politicians? The arms manufacturers? Not likely. Last year, the 52 American hostages were welcomed home from Iran in one of the greatest parades of all. It was nicely made for television, in which commercials for Pepsi and Japanese cars were certainly not out of place, because broken bodies and impermissible pain were not on display. Of course, they were officially approved heroes, who would embarrass no one with confessions of guilt or failure. Victory in their case, having been bought conveniently with money.
Well, what does the city, as big as this, now provide for the veterans?
The city directly, actually nothing. The mayor appointed one person.
What's he do?
To be the commissioner of Veterans Affairs. But he doesn't have an office, he doesn't have a staff, and there's nothing he can do.
I never met Bob Mueller in Vietnam, but I vividly remember him being thrown out of the Republican Party convention in Miami Beach 9 years ago in his wheelchair. Bob, a Marine officer, was shot through the spine and is a decorated hero in the John Wayne tradition. But alas, there he was, spoiling it all by shouting at President Nixon that the war in Vietnam could never be won. Bob Mueller now runs Vietnam Veterans of America from a seedy office in New York and with barely enough money to pay the rent, in contrast to the government Veterans Administration, whose enormous budget goes mostly to those who went to war and came back winners.
Bob, some veterans have told me that people have blamed them for losing the war.
That really hurts. Let me give a sense of perspective on this, because it's very important. You know, the whole fervor with which my generation was willing to go fight is totally misunderstood. With the Vietnam era, more than 80% of the guys that wound up in the military enlisted, okay? More than 80% enlisted. In the Second World War, 2/3 of all of those were drafted.
So the truth about soldiers who went to Vietnam was very different from what people understood. They understood it to be a drafted war. In fact, you're saying that 2/3 of those who went volunteered to go, like yourself.
Yeah, more than